I'm in Mount Gambier, South Australia, 3,200 kilometres from Perth. And I actually drove across to build this cinema. The reason I did that is because we had a few issues with freight companies and a few other technical challenges, and we decided better that we put the gear in the car and bring it over here. A lot of the gear had been shipped here and that was okay, but some of the other equipment didn't arrive quite so well. Okay, so I'm on the second floor of a two-story home in Mount Gambier, and they've opted to turn this room into a cinema. A lovely family. I've been working here for 5 days now and it's been pretty full on. So we've got the room decked out. We did a full room design, and we've got absorbers, diffusers, but a few interesting challenges. We've got a sort of a normal height ceiling, but at the back of the room are two roller shutters. Now originally we actually thought they were going to be metal, but it turns out they're a fabric roller shutter, which has actually really helped, because I was concerned about some slap echo going backwards and forwards across the room. But it turns out that on measuring them, these actually do a really good job of dealing with that slap echo, because the material is such that it actually takes the energy out of that slap echo. So what's in this room? At the back of the room we've got an Epson TW9400 projector, which is doing a great job in here actually. We've got 4 Krix Volcanic Slim subwoofers, effectively 2 in the rear corner and 2 quarter way in at the front of the room. And then we've got 9-channel bed layer, so we've got front wides, which are the Krix Hyperphonix 45s. We've got the Phonix flats, we've got the Hyperphonix 45s in the corners, and I'll explain why. And then we've got 3 Megaphonix behind the screen over here. And then we've got 4 Hyperphonix 45s in the ceiling. Now, why have we got the Hyperphonix 45s in the corners? Well, again, because we've got these 2 blinds here, we can't get any speakers any narrower. So what we've done is we've angled the Hyperphonix 45s towards the seating position, and then we're using a Trinov to pull those angles together. Speaking of the Trinov, let's have a look at the rack. So over here in the corner is the rack room. Now, the client's worked with me on assembling this room, and I've got to give him amazing credit. With a little bit of guidance, he has assembled the entire rack himself. We worked together on the selection of the location of the items, but he's done nearly all the cabling, and then we've checked everything. Everything that went in, the HDMI cables, network cables, speaker cables, everything was tested, so we know that we've got no issues whatsoever. Right. In the rack here, I don't know if you can see, there's a Trinov, an Arachnus switch, we've got a UB820 disc player, we've got an Xbox, there's a Shield TV, there is a Nintendo Switch, we've got a Project turntable, we've got Control 4 down the bottom, that's an EA1, and we've got 2 Sunfire 7-channel amplifiers that are running the room. That's all locked away in here. We've got a cooling fan in the ceiling, and obviously lights on the cabinet, and that's it. The whole system's tucked away quite nicely. We've had a couple of rooms like this recently which have pleasantly surprised us, but what I'm really loving about this room is it is punching very much above its weight. Watched a movie last night, looks amazing. The calibration on the TW9400 has come up really well. I'm very happy with it. The screen is an SI screen. It's a 133-inch 235:1 woven screen, because we needed a bit of distance across the room so that we could get the zoom to work with the scope screen. So this has got the SI weave on it, fantastic little screen, and look, that's pretty much it. But the room sounds amazing, and I must admit, in terms of the ambience and the separation between channels and the sound that we're getting out of this is well above its weight. So you know, it's been nothing but grins all round on this room, and I think they're very happy. But what we're going to do is we're going to get Ben in here. We're going to have a chat with him. We're going to talk to him about why he did this and his thoughts on it. But you know, so let's have a talk with Ben now. So I'm here with Ben. Ben's the gentleman who basically asked us to build this cinema. We are a long way from Perth. We're 3,200 kilometres. I think I mentioned earlier that we drove across because we had some challenges with freight and that. But I wanted to introduce you to Ben, and I'm curious to hear from Ben as to why you built a cinema in the first place.
Yeah, I think from when I was a kid, we never really grew up with movies at all. So I've had plenty of chats with friends along the time, and they've said, oh, I can remember watching this movie, and I'm like, no, I really haven't seen any of the old classics or anything like that.
I remember you saying that, yeah.
Yeah, so bought this house and ended up, after we moved in, we had this space up here that really wasn't allocated to anything. So it was always a bit of a dream to one day see if we could turn this into a theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the room, I think I mentioned earlier in the footage, has been a bit of a challenge. It's a very wide room. We've got two glass windows or doors at the back with shutters on them. We've got a fairly standard height ceiling, but we had to work with the fact that with the width of the room, make sure that we can get the sound in the right place, and we had the rear speakers, which are of course quite wide as well. But it's all come together really well. If you don't mind me asking, what made you choose us to do the job? There's a lot of people who do cinemas, so...
Yeah, well, it's probably been a 2 to 2.5 year project overall from when I started looking into it, thinking the bigger the room, the better for us, and thinking this was an awesome room, but effectively that compromises things a bit. Went down the YouTube rabbit hole from go to woe and ended up finding you on there, joined a few groups on Facebook, and Home Theatre Engineering came up as always great people to work with.
Oh, thanks.
So ended up getting in touch with Enzo, and yeah, the ball started rolling from there.
It's a big ask for someone a long way away to trust in a company that's 3,200 kilometres away to come across, build a cinema and then go away again. How's that worked out for you? Are you comfortable with that? And what's your experience been over the last week? And I must say, before we go into that, Ben has done a lot of this job himself. As I mentioned, he actually assembled the rack, wired it up, tested the cables. We went through that together, and we fired up the room and it worked first time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So well done. So yeah, so how did you find the experience in building this room?
Yeah, the last week has been one of the big highlights of my life. I will say that. It's just been so much fun. The days have gone super quick because I am having fun. Yeah. I was stuck in my little hole over in the corner with the rack. Yeah. But I enjoyed that and loved watching Andrew's processes as we went through it all. Cool. Going back to your original question, I've got no worries about not being close to you geographically, because I know that we've got plenty of awesome equipment that you can just dial in on whenever we need help, and along the way you've made it more than easy for us, and I know I can call you anytime. No, absolutely. Yeah, I was super impressed. I think the nice thing about you working on the rack also is it's hopefully given you a higher level of confidence in the room. Should you ever need to do anything, it's not just this strange thing that, you know, you're staring at. You've helped build the room. The room's had a few challenges. Originally, that front wall where the screen is, that wasn't there, was it? No. No, so that was just a railing coming up from the stairs. Yep. Obviously, we had the glass windows behind. We've got the wide room. We've got the door where the rack went in. Just that was close. Yeah. But that went in okay. Hopefully you don't have to pull it out again. We went to some lengths to make sure that everything's okay before it went in. It's certainly a tight fit. So we've had a listen over the last few days. We listened to the yellow disc, which is, you know, my favourite musical Atmos disc at the moment. And then we watched a few different tracks. What's your impression of the room? By comparison with your expectations, like what did you think was going to happen, and compared to with, you know, what we've ended up with? Yeah, I think I tried to keep my expectations out of it as much as I could, and kept away from going and seeing other people's theatres, cinemas, as much as I could. So, but also had an idea in my head where I thought I'd get to, and you saw the emotional response that I did, both myself and Leanne had. I think that kind of proves how much over our expectations it actually came in with, and you've seen my strange taste in music so far, and you put on the yellow, which wouldn't normally be my taste in music, but I can't wait to put that back on again because I enjoyed that experience so much.
For those of you who haven't, I'm trying to remember the name of the actual disc, but it's the latest Yellow album, but it's been mastered entirely for Atmos, and the sound is crazy, isn't it? It's just real. If you want to experience Atmos, grab that disc. I'll have to put it on the screen because I just can't remember the title of the album. Anyway, the thing I can say is this, you know, one of the things we can never really know, you can do all the maths, you can do all the modelling, we never really know how a room's going to turn out. The thing that has blown me away about this room, and I think it'd be fair to say you've done this on a fairly, what would you call it, well-managed budget, I think. You know, it certainly wasn't done on the cheap, but it also wasn't done at a crazy budget either. And I think you've made some really good decisions. You know, you've gone for the Trinov, which I think is just the core of the system, and that just shows in the sound. The Sunfire amps are a really good value amplifier that have just proved their weight. They're a very, very capable amp at a good price, and they really deliver. And the Epson, not the most expensive projector in the world, but we spent some time calibrating it. That was finished yesterday. We watched a movie last night. And I've got to say, I see a lot of cinemas obviously, but I was really blown away. The depth of image that we got. The Epson's put out a fair bit of light, 2600 lumens, I think it is. But the performance on this screen was mind-blowing. This room, and I'm not just saying it because Ben's here, this room is really punching above its weight. We've had a couple of rooms like that this year, so this isn't the first time I've said it. But some rooms really surprise you. And I was a bit worried about the width of the room. I was a bit worried about the placement of the speakers. This room is astounding. It's performing as good as a room, more than twice its price. I am extremely happy with it. I would have this room for myself any day. So, I'm really pleased to be able to hand the room over to you. I'm really chuffed to have spent the week with you and your family as well. Ben and his family put us up, which means, or put up with us, I probably should say. But it means that, I've been living here, but it also means we can get into the job. We've put in some long days. We've overcome issues. Oh, the other issue, here's an interesting one. I don't know if you can see it or if you saw it in the original video. Right behind the projector, we've got a big flue that comes from a wood fire stove downstairs. So we spent an evening, we had the wood fire going, and then we were measuring the temperatures off it, and we had the projector nearby, and we were checking the radiant heat, and we've actually put a heat guard behind the projector, and luckily the Epsons draw the air in from the front, cool air from the front, and eject it out the front. So there's been a few things that we've had to work around, but the outcome is astounding. And from the bottom of my heart, and on behalf of Enzo and myself, I'd like to thank you and Leanne and your family for having us here, for asking us to do the job, and I hope that this gives you just so much satisfaction over the coming years.
I know it will. Yes,
all right.
I know indeed. And we thank you and Enzo so much for, it's been a big journey.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah, so the first conversation with Enzo would have been more than a year ago now, and I'm just so happy that once I had that first conversation, I knew we needed to go down that track. We needed to reevaluate our budget, but having said that, I don't see that it might have been more of an upfront cost for us than we'd originally thought about. Right. But over the years, I know that we've got a system that's not going to require as much upgrading as a base system would, and I don't think would have spent that much more than anyone else with a theatre in 10 years' time overall.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Speaking of long journeys, I have to go now.
Yes.
3,200 kilometres back home in a car. But it's been worth every bit of it. And Mount Gambier, which is where we are, is a bit of a second home to me. It's also the place that I learned to cave dive. So this is a place that's near and dear to my heart. So I'll be back to bother you in the future.
Of course. You're welcome to stay.
All right. Thanks again, Ben.
Thanks, Andrew.
Cheers. Okay. See you later, folks. Bye.